about Wentz maybe a little bit last show, but about whether he was going to stay or go. First they fired Doug Peterson, so we thought, okay, Doug Peterson got fired.
Right.
So here we're thinking, okay, if they fired Doug Peterson, they're basically saying that we want Carson Wentz as our QB.
Right.
Well, the answer is we don't want either of them. I think they might have had some moral kind of decision about who to keep, who to go, and they probably ended up deciding, you know what, let's just hit the reset button, start from scratch.
Yeah.
I won't say from scratch.
Well,
you do have Jalen Hurts as your quarterback, who in the few games that he played showed some promise.
Absolutely.
Granted, under Doug Peterson, so we'll have to see if the new coach that comes in can help him sustain that performance. But basically, Philadelphia is saying, new coach, Jalen Hurts is our quarterback, and now Wentz is in Indianapolis, which is actually, in my mind, it's a good fit. I
think so too.
Frank Wright is the coach now, which I think Carson Wentz has some history underneath.
Yeah.
And I think in the end it's going to work out well for Wentz there. Now the trade, that's the kicker here, Davis. The trade, and we talked about the Stafford Goff trade and about who won that trade. Obviously, Indianapolis, in my mind, they won here. I mean, not only do you get what many people think is still a very talented quarterback who's in a very unhealthy situation, who can reset, go under a coach that he thrived under. So now they have a quarterback to replace Phillip Rivers, who retired. But they only had to give up a third-round pick this year and a conditional second-round pick.
It turns into a first round if he can win 70%.
It's he has to play 70% of the snaps. Indy has to make the playoffs, which they did this year.
Yep.
So,
and I think that's another team that's on the up.
And that's a very achievable format right now because again, I think you're actually upgrading at quarterback with a retired Phillip Rivers to a Carson Wentz in his peak. So you're getting an upgrade there. You're basically keeping the same team intact. And you look at the division now. Tennessee is probably your only real competition at the division. They kind of I think they underachieved a little bit this year after doing well last year. But Jacksonville is going to be in rebuild with Trevor Lawrence coming in. And Houston, let's not even get started with the mess in Houston right now. I mean, if Houston wins one game next year, that might be a success story for Houston. But it's a very winnable division for Indianapolis. Even if they win the division, now it's 7 teams in the playoffs. I'm assuming they're going to keep that format. It's very feasible for them to at least sneak a wild card spot in there. Overall, these are my thoughts. It's a clear win for Indianapolis. Do you have any additional thoughts that I missed?
No, other than the fact that I agree, and yeah. I think it's a low risk. Other than the contract itself, high reward. Mm-hmm. If this change of scenery can help Wentz reset, and they have some weapons among one of the better, if not the best, offensive lines in the National Football League. Mm-hmm. I think it was a smart move. Like I said, low risk, high reward. Other than the contract, and that you're taking on from Wentz. Because it's still a hefty little number that you got to pay him out. But to be fair, I think only a quarter of it's guaranteed. I think $25 million. But still, like I said, I think the Colts want it. I think Philly might come back to bite him in the butt because I don't know if they're sold on Jalen Hurts, and so that's another conversation there. But no, I agree with you 100%.
Well, the thing with Philly, and again, we talked about the money part.
Sorry, Peter.
And for those
Brian,
who are not,
my relatives, I have a lot of Philadelphia friends.
Yeah, but you know what? They're probably all sitting here going, and I'm a Giants fan, so I like to root against Philly.
Right.
But if I'm a Philadelphia fan, I'm sitting here going, well, what choice did we really have?
Yeah.
Now,
I know.
Like I said, because they fired Doug Peterson first, my thought was that if they brought someone in and Carson Wentz could restart there, maybe it can revive. But I think they still thought that was too risky.
Yeah.
They just thought he was done with it. His mind frame was just out of Philly already, and that they had to dump him. But the challenge, of course, was the contract. It was, I believe, a $33 million per year.
Per year.
And you can't just make that money go away. You have to. So Indianapolis now has to pay that $33 million, which means that Indy does not want to give you a lot back. And Philly said, you know what? At least we can clear the books.
Yeah.
And it's very likely that next year, in my mind, I think Indy will make the playoffs. I don't know where, but I do think they will make it. And so I think that will become a first rounder. And so there is some value in that next year first round pick because my guess is that Philly is probably not going to have a good year this year. They're going to be under a new regime. Jalen Hurts is still going to get his feet wet. Again, he might surprise some people.
He might do. He has some talent,
but,
absolutely.
But and again,
Oklahoma kid.
I will say, Dave, it's the NFC East, so we know how bad the NFC East has been lately. So maybe it's not surprising if Philadelphia somehow sneaks in.
That's true.
Their bad record division win.
That's true.
I mean, they were the worst of the worst.
That division is a massive question mark.
But yeah, we'll talk about that at a different show because we can talk for hours about
the
NFC East and obviously some bias as a Giants fan. But nevertheless, I think Philly, they were in a lose-lose situation. So dumping him sucked, but it was probably better.
I think it made sense for both, honestly.
It was probably better than holding on to him with a small sliver of hope that he might rejuvenate himself under a new coach. So we'll see how that pans out. But yeah, Indy won, deal by far, and we'll see how the trajectory goes for both teams.
Yeah.